All right. Let me see here. Okay. I'm not sure if anyone's in here right now, so I see my bubble moving, so hopefully my sound is okay. First of all, as I put in the chat, massive trigger warning. This definitely discusses between the news articles and what happened in the preliminary hearing. This discusses SA of a minor, unaliving of a minor, and other disturbing topics. So please keep that in mind. And if you are not able to handle that, I definitely understand. Um, I'm going to probably not look at the chat too much because I'm going to try to stay focused on discussing the topic. But I understand if y'all come in and then you see what it is and you're like, I can't handle it. I get it. So I appreciate if you can or can't stay, I still appreciate you. So we're gonna try to get through this. Quick hellos. Hey Cat, Baby Peaches. Hey Bama Girl, Miss Cutie Pie, Leia's Grandma plus one. How are y'all? All right. So the first thing I pulled up that would help me the most, because when this case was first, when Naziah was reported missing last year, I had started posting some things about it. It hadn't gained a lot of traction yet, but it gained enough for me to know, and it's not in my state. It's in Michigan, I believe, but it still was kind of quiet, and now it's picking up momentum. So thankfully, a timeline was put out so we can review the timeline of when it started first surfacing, and then we'll get to where we are now, where his phone was discovered, and his being Jarvis Butts. He's 41 years old, and his, I'm air quoting, niece was Naziah was 13, and the reason I say niece is because he was the boyfriend of her aunt, I believe. I said it from the beginning. I stand on what I said. I blame the adults around her, as well as obviously he is the criminal, so he needs to stand for conviction and the punishment. But I do blame people bringing adults around their kids and leaving them alone with their kids and all these things. And I understand if everybody doesn't feel the same way, but for me, that's how I feel, and I'm not changing my mind on that one. Um, okay, so we're gonna go through this. I have a few things, a few articles up here, and depending on how they move forward, we'll probably have to look at some of the trial on my trending at some point side, because YouTube doesn't, even when you're playing court stuff and it's very public, it's not necessarily subject to like copyright, it still doesn't like it. So if we do watch the trial at another time, we're going to probably do it on trending at some point. But I am also live from legal at some point for those of y'all that ask what cases are you covering and things like that. Shout out to Leia's grandma, because she was like, are you still doing Naziah? I'm like, I am, I'm still doing it. So here we are. But yeah, for case things, just please keep an eye out on legal at some point. But we're doing this from both channels today. So if you see some stuff in the chat, but you don't see them in your chat, it's probably because the person's commenting from the other side on a different channel. Yes, this is very, very sad. Again, I should have the trigger warnings pinned. It gets bad when we get to the text messages. I'm not going to have the text messages up on the screen. I'm just going to read some of the text messages. I may even edit my words on how I say them out loud, because it is bad. It's horrible, y'all. So first, let me get you through the timeline if not everyone is familiar with the Naziah Harris case. So first of all, so it says what we learned in the Naziah Harris disappearance nearly 1 year later. So it says it's been nearly a year since 13-year-old Naziah Harris went missing in Detroit's East Side. Dozens of searches have been conducted since then, but she has never been found. Her case almost went cold until later in the year when Jarvis Butts was arrested in connection to Naziah's disappearance. Police began investigating her case as a homicide. Piece by piece, police have been trying to understand what happened to Naziah and how Butts is connected to her unaliving. So the background is that prosecutors said Butts was supposed to turn himself in to authorities on a pow charge on January 9th, 2024, the day Naziah went missing. But that date was pushed back to February. Harris allegedly met up and Harris's Naziah allegedly met up with Butts that day, and the two reportedly went to, I'm going to say Ypsilanti. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, before returning back to Detroit, where Butts checked into a motel. Text, re- Text records allege that Butts knew Harris was pregnant and that he began searching online about um, unaliving, or I'm just gonna say the word abortions, abortion pills, and drinking red antifreeze. Authorities believe Butts had been sex abusing Harris since 2022 before unaliving her in January. Prosecutors said he had a history of targeting and befriending women to get close to and sex abuse their daughters. In his records, because some things are sealed because it has to do with minors, but one of the things I did see was that, and unfortunately, I'm sure it's going to come out as I read this. Yeah, it's coming up in the article too, but there's definitely a criminal history of contact with minors when it comes to him before it happened to Naziah. But it says it's not only the sex abuse case Butts is involved with, he's also been charged for reportedly sex abusing two other young girls, as well as a conviction for sex assault in 2005. Prosecutors called Butts a serial child rapist who sex assaulted an 8-year-old family member and a girlfriend's 4-year-old daughter who reportedly caught chlamydia from the assault. He was charged on September 27th, 2024, as a habitual fourth time offender. Butts and Harris had reportedly known each other because he was the father of her cousins. The abuse of Harris allegedly began in 2022 with sex explicit texts and photos being sent to the child. He was tracked to the Rouge River in Detroit the day after her disappearance, where police would later recover the clothes Harris was last seen wearing. Authorities said there was damage to the clothing that could indicate a struggle. Butts has been charged with first-degree premeditated unaliving, child sex abusive material, and second-degree criminal sex conduct with a person under 13. January 9th, 2024, Naziah Harris got off of a school bus at Cornwall Street and 3 Mile Drive, which is near the intersection of Warren Avenue and Outer Drive on Detroit's east side. She was never seen again. Jarvis Butts was scheduled to turn himself to authorities on a gun charge. However, this was pushed back to February. January 10th, Detroit Public Schools Community District launched an investigation after Annette Harris, Naziah's grandmother and guardian, reported her disappearance. On February 14th, 2024, after officials with the Detroit Public Schools Community District hit a roadblock, they brought the case to the Detroit Police Department, leading to police canvassing the area and investigating the case on February 14th. Detective Jason Mays and his partner on February 15th, Detective Jason Mays and his partner interviewed Jarvis in connection to Naziah's case. Jarvis claimed he was dealing with a legal issue on the day Naziah went missing. He also told Mays and Johnson that Naziah, who's related to one of his daughters, would occasionally come to his auto shop to work with his daughter. March 6, 2024, police began searching a pond near the intersection of, I'm going to say, Gratiot Avenue and Quinn Road in Clinton Township relating to Naziah's disappearance. March 7th, 2024, a woman reports to police she found Naziah's school ID. She says she stepped over it multiple times for over 2 weeks before deciding to pick it up. Once she picked up the ID that was face down, she recognized Naziah's photo and called police. March 12th, 2024, 2 months after Naziah's disappearance, her family told Local 4 they're holding on to hope of finding her. At this point, there have been over a dozen searches for her. Authorities searched the area of 7 Mile and Berg near the river in relation to Naziah's case. There they found pink overalls, a black hoodie with headphones in the pocket, and a shoe. Angelique says, hoping that DA Kim Worthy will press charges against that grandmother and aunt. Thank you for the super chat. And this is where, Angelique, I told you, and I have to read more about the grandmother. But let me tell you what. Let me tell you what. Something needs to happen with the adults surrounding that little girl. It's I just don't understand leaving your kids with. I don't understand. Um, I also want to say I did get to listen to 75% of the interview with the dad of Naziah and someone that he was on Facebook doing the interview, and I was so disgusted with the way that the conversation went. I am not saying this so much about the interviewer, it is about the dad, because the dad was more focused on why he, how do I put it, why he wasn't in her life like that. And basically, because Naziah was the result of an affair and something about the dad's wife and things like that. And it's just like, he wasn't in her life. And to me, to go and do an interview just to talk about you weren't in her life, but you, I don't know, sent clothes and stuff. I was just like, I don't understand why you're here. The dad pissed me off. I'm the adults have really just, I'm done. I'm done when it comes to these adults. It's a lot of layers. I agree. Very disturbing. The grandma got pregnant at 11. So she's a victim too. The grandma's a victim as well. Yeah, she didn't know for a while. At some point she knew because the husband was, the way he was, I mean, not the husband, the way the dad was putting it about Naziah was that at some point they came to some weird agreement, and he just, I guess, stayed, I don't know, he stayed away. I don't know. I couldn't stomach the interview. I'm just like, at this point, I don't know. I didn't like it. It was just, it was unproductive from what the dad chose to talk about, in my opinion. The mom was 13 when she had the little girl. Naziah's dad died last year. Rest in peace to him. I'm still not taking back what I said when he did that interview. I'm not taking it back. But if he did, if you're talking about Naziah's dad, rest in peace to him now. But the adults failed her. I don't take that back. I don't. Um, okay. So a lot of child victims while they were children, and then it's creating now another child victim is what I'm getting from y'all's comments. Oh gosh, the older brother, Lord. Okay, so I'm gonna keep reading the timeline. So it says the authorities searched the area of 7 Mile and Berg near the river in relation to Naziah's case. There they found the pink overalls, a black hoodie with headphones in the pocket, and a shoe. That was on March 12th, 2024. Then hey, Auntie Natty. Then the timeline skipped to August 15th, 2024. Detroit police submitted a warrant request relating to Naziah's disappearance. September 26, 2024, Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy announced Jarvis Butts was charged in connection to her disappearance. Authorities announced the case will be treated as a homicide, even though a body had not been found. And we did watch that when she announced that, and I I mean, most good prosecutors won't reveal too much because they're still going after the people they need to go after. But I appreciate the way she answered the questions when she was up there talking to the press. September 27th, 2024, Jarvis Bust is arraigned and faces multiple charges in Naziah's unaliving. And apparently, the original docket, he was supposed to go to that judge that made that the black male judge that the bald he was bald. He was that judge that made that girl get dressed in juvenile clothing because she fell asleep in his courtroom. He wasn't holding court. She wasn't even supposed to be there. She was supposed to be helping to plant and make like Detroit green again type stuff, but they had didn't give her a choice, and she ended up in that courtroom. And because she was nodding off, turns out she wasn't getting good sleep because she was basically, her mom and her were unhoused, and he got demoted to like a traffic court judge. But he was, I think, supposed to be over at least I think the preliminary part of this case, but because of his demotion, it was actually reassigned to another judge. I saw his name connected to this case right before it was removed. But it says November 1st, 2024, Jarvis Butt's preliminary examination begins. It's not only focused on Naziah's case, but also two other victims Butts allegedly SEX assaulted. A 13-year-old and a 20-year-old testified in two separate cases. January 6, 2025, Jarvis Butt's preliminary examination continued. Dozens of witnesses have testified so far, and more were expected to testify on January 8th, 2025. So now we're going to a couple of these articles to just look at some of the things that were testified to and some of the things that happened in the courtroom. So this is where some of it will be repetitive because they're going to summarize some things we just went over, but some things, they'll put new stuff in there too. So we're going to go over the articles. So this article came out on January 8th, 2025, and it says a preliminary examination for a man charged in the unaliving of missing 13-year-old Naziah Harris continued Tuesday. Jarvis Butts, 42, of Detroit, is charged with first-degree premeditated unaliving, second-degree criminal SEX conduct, and child SEX abusive activity. Butts, who dated Naziah's biological aunt, is accused of sending SEX explicit text messages in September 2022 and having an inappropriate relationship with the teen. According to phone records, he became aware she was pregnant in November 2023. 8 witnesses, including Naziah's grandmother and aunt, testified Monday during a preliminary exam. Naziah's aunt, Shannon Harris, testified that she did not suspect anything beyond a normal uncle-niece bond between Butts and Naziah. On Tuesday, one of Naziah's young cousins testified about being in the room with another cousin while Butts took advantage and I'm going to have to take this off my screen now because of what it's saying on the screen. But the cousin was saying that she was there when Butts, I'm going to say, assaulted Naziah. The cousin says it wasn't the first time she witnessed Butts coercing an assault on her cousins, plural. She testified that he tried to make advances towards her at one point, but she was able to say no after recognizing what he was trying to do. The teen's adult cousin, Roxy, described seeing Butts in court and hearing the allegations. Quote, I don't have nice words necessarily for that, but obviously I have to be strong for my family. I have to be strong for Naziah, and I'm putting my trust in the justice system, Roxy told CBS News Detroit. Additionally, an expert in phone records forensics and cell tower mapping presented a timeline of where they tracked Butts' phone between the time Naziah went missing and the following 36 hours. The expert testified that data showed Butts' phone sometime after 4 p.m. on January 9th, 2024, at his shop on Connor Street. Between that time and a little before 7:30 p.m., the data showed the phone's location heading to, I'm going to say Ypsilanti, consistent with what one witness testified on Monday about seeing Naziah with Butts. Further analysis showed more activity from his cell phone near his shop, once again being between 8:22 p.m. and 9 p.m. on January 9th. The expert then testified that Butts' phone activity showed near the Park Crest Inn in Harper Woods. 2 witnesses on Monday testified that Butts would allegedly take women there to have sex. Another exhibit showed Butts' phone activity between 11:40 p.m. on January 10th and 1:30 a.m. on January 11th near the area of 7 Mile and Berg Roads. It is the same location where crews searched for Naziah's remains. They never found her, but they did find a jacket, pink onesie, and black Nike shoes that matched what witnesses described the teen wearing when she went missing. Quote, we were responding to a missing person, Border Patrol agent Wyatt Barnes told the court on Tuesday. I was searching the riverbank of River Rouge. We were searching south along the bank. I was on the east side of the bank in the 7 Mile and Berg area. Butts has also been charged with the SEX abuse of 2 other girls in separate cases. A full day of witness testimony is expected on Wednesday before a judge determines whether the case will proceed to trial. Before I go on, I'm going to try to find the one of what the news says that the aunt and the mom testified to. So 1 second, let me see. I mean aunt and grandmother if I said aunt and mom, but I meant aunt and grandmother. Let me see. Okay, let me see here. That's not an article. That's not what I want. I'm keeping it hidden because of some of the things that's coming up on the articles now, especially once the text messages come up too. Um, all I'm seeing is that the aunt checked Instagram. Let me see. I'm not seeing what the aunt said beyond she checked Instagram. Let me try one of these and see. Let me just check. No, that's not. Okay, let me try the grandmother. And I can't play unfortunately, the video and audio because of a restriction YouTube has on me. So that's why if you're like, it's video, I can't play it right now. So I'm so sorry, y'all. Wow. Okay. So I'll keep going on the articles I have, but you would think that'd be the first thing I could find is the grandmother or the aunt, but I don't see it. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going on what I do have. Um, Let me see. So the next one I have is the sister of the defendant. So the sister of Jarvis Butts, and it says teen's family testified preliminary hearing. So let me see. It says, oh, I'm going down because it's going to recap. It says Derek Wolf was the first witness to take the stand after court returned to session. He worked as a police officer at Detroit Public Schools at the time Naziah Harris went missing. He took a missing persons report on January 10th after speaking to Naziah Harris's grandmother. He followed up with some students and canvassed some areas where the teenager would have gotten off the bus, as well as near the school. Margaret Lavallo was called to the stand afterward. She previously worked as an evidence technician for the Detroit Police Department. She currently works for the Macomb County Medical Examiner's Office. She was tasked with helping the department at a scene found by officers near 7 Mile and Berg, just east of Telegraph Road. She took photos and collected evidence during the search for Naziah Harris that included a pink jumpsuit, red tennis shoes, and a pair of earphones found in a sweatshirt. Um, I'll I'll show y'all the image she found, but oh man. So there's the pink article of clothing, and there's the shoe and the hoodie. It says, hold on. Paulette said the grandmother waited until she took the other kids to school and then called the police. It says the third witness after the lunch break was named Talasha Moore. She was asked about different times Jarvis Butts was with a family member of hers. Both of the men worked at an auto shop. At the time, Moore's family member was with Butts and was working on Moore's mom's car. She identified Naziah as being with Butts on January 9th. The two were together when the defendant was delivering the vehicle they were working on. Jarvis Butts' sister, Tawana Butts, was called next. She spoke to police after believing she had seen Naziah the day she was unalived. Tawana was at her brother's auto shop on January 9th. She left the auto shop around 6:30 p.m., telling prosecutors she observed a little girl getting in and out of a white Cadillac Escalade believed to be Jarvis Butt's vehicle. Tawana also identified some of the clothes found by the evidence technician as similar to what Naziah was wearing on January 9th. The school called the police? Oh, the school called the police. So the grandmother did not call. Okay, wow. Okay. Um, it says she also told the court she believed her brother was lying to her after asking about why the child was with him at the auto shop. Jarvis Buss's defense team pressed his sister on how she was able to pick out Naziah Harris as the child with him and why she suspected him. She told them she had learned some information what about when she I guess when she was told to listen to a podcast about the missing teenager. Another woman who had a child with Jarvis Butts was next called to the stand. She met the defendant in 2019 at a mechanic shop he worked at. She testified Jarvis Butts borrowed her car on January 9th. Prosecutors also asked her about glasses that were found in her car after that day, which her son had found. She was later shown photos of Naziah Harris, who had similar glasses. Family and school witnesses also testified Monday morning. It says the court went on lunch break around noon. Before that, the Wayne County prosecutor called several witnesses to the stand during Monday's hearing. It's the second hearing in the case after Butts first appeared in court in November. Witnesses called to testify Monday morning include Naziah Harris's grandmother, Annette Harris, who talked about Jarvis Butts coming to her home and the day the teenager went missing. Shannon Harris, who was the victim's aunt, also testified. She has 5 children with Butts and spoke about instances where the suspect would pick Naziah Harris and take her to his job at an auto shop. I'm guessing they meant pick up. The third witness was Marilyn Lee, a substitute teacher who taught at J.E. Clark Prep Prep Academy, where Naziah Harris went to school. She taught the day Harris was last seen and testified not seeing the teenager the next day, despite regular visits during the week in school. Okay, so I'm going to the next article, and let me see. So this is so his ex-fiance testified. It says Tashiana Davis said Butts was secretive with his phone and that she later learned he was juggling multiple women. She said she often drove Butts to court for another legal problem and that police eventually seized her vehicle because of this case. A Border Patrol agent tasked with searching the River Rouge area for clothing testified to finding a onesie and a shoe. Valerie Smith is the one that testified she noticed a photo ID on the ground in late March. A lab scientist testified that she found Butts' DNA evidence on various items connected to Harris. It says perhaps the strongest testimony Tuesday came from a child, Naziah's cousin, the girl who was 8 years old at the time, recalled 2 separate occasions where she said Butts took her, Naziah, and another child to the auto shop where he worked. And that's where she said she witnessed him assaulting Naziah at least on 2 separate occasions. Okay. And then it says the prosecution, and I don't have this article up, but before when it first came out, it said that also one of Jarvis Butts's, I'll say co-workers, or it was either a neighbor or co-worker, had also witnessed him being around Naziah, and I can't remember if he said something seemed inappropriate about it, but there was someone else that the articles that I'm reading now don't mention, but there was an adult male that mentioned some things about what he had witnessed when it came to Naziah and Jarvis as well. It says the prosecution called their final witness Wednesday in the preliminary hearing for Jarvis Butts. Sergeant Shannon Jones, the officer in charge of the case, was that witness and will continue testifying Thursday. When Wayne County's interim deputy chief medical examiner, Omer Reyes, testified, he said he was asked to review Naziah's medical records to see if anything in her health history would explain a cause of death. The prosecution asked Reyes, did you see anything in there that would have caused Naziah to die naturally? And Reyes replied, no. The defense took exception with that testimony since Naziah's body has not been recovered. Hold on, this thing froze my, uh-oh. This thing froze my tab. Oh, gosh. Okay. So the defense asked him, so if you don't have a body, you can't really opine this to whether a person is in fact deceased. Fair to say? And he replied, correct. At the start of Jones's testimony, she explained how she inherited the case from Detroit Public Schools Community District's police department and the red flags that stood out to her from the start. Number one, she had never been missing before. There's been no updates on any of her social media, which is very uncommon for a young child or a juvenile. They're addicted to those. There had been a last known contact that there had been a last known contact that she had possibly met somebody, is what we were informed, that there was a text message. The sergeant discussed the search of the river, and Jones said investigators executed at least 20 search warrants in the case, including for electronic devices belonging to Butts. They said they found questionable Google searches from December 2023, 1 month before Naziah disappeared. The searches surround the belief that Butts impregnated Naziah and tried to cover his tracks. Like, he visited Drink Me and Abort Your Baby, the herbal tea by Maya. She said he also visited Planned Parenthood's website and looked up further information about the pill. Jones said Butts also Googled whether a person can use herbs to have an at-home, I'm trying not to say the word too much, but an at-home, y'all know what I'm saying. And if a person can drink red antifreeze. And then this is where, okay, y'all. The court reveals the disturbing text messages between Jarvis Butts and Naziah. Let me see. I'm going down 1 second. So September 27th, 2022. Guard your mental health. Before I read these, I'm going to bleep, but you'll still get the context. So if you cannot handle it, I will go. Termination. Thank you, TFP. I'm going to try to say termination if I come across that word again. Thank you. What's going on? Oh, yeah, I'm not saying someone can't show the footage of the trial. I'm saying I'm personally restricted right now is what I'm saying. And because the topic is so far off what I'm covering, I'm just not going to go into detail about it because it's not as serious as the topic itself. But no, I'm not saying that other people can't show the footage. I'm just saying I can't show it right now. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, no problem with other people showing it. I hope it gets as much coverage as possible. I definitely do. Okay, so the text messages, again, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. September 27th, 2022, Jarvis texts, come on. And Naziah says, are you okay? And she says, where are we doing it at your choice? And Jarvis says, you tell me. And Naziah says, the basement, are you sure? Or job? And Jarvis says, basically, can you perform oral? And then he says, and make sure you erase the messages. Naziah says, that's what I plan to do. And then June 5th, 2022, it says, Jarvis says, I'm at your house. And Naziah says, dang, we were just there. You better not be in my room. I need another phone. And then she says, I miss you. And then he says that he stole her underwear. June 24th, 2023, he says, send me some pictures, please. Naziah says, don't you still have the other pics? And he says, no. And then she says, I will send some. June 27th, 2023, he asked her, is she not wearing any clothes yet? And then she says, no, I don't want to take off my clothes, basically. Are you mad that I didn't? And he says, I'm used to you telling me no. And then she says, come on, babe, I'm sorry, just not in the mood right now. I'm sorry. September 26, 2023, she says, babe, are you up? And then she sends question marks, and then it's from her again. It says, yeah. And then she says, my period hasn't come at all. Are you there? And then he messages, what do you mean? And she says, it hasn't come. And then he says, since when? And she says, since I was in the hospital. And he said, that was last month. She says, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I have to go to the doctor tomorrow. And he says, you said you took a pregnancy test and it was negative. And she said, it did. He says, so go get another one. She says, I can't. I don't have money. You go get one. And she says, you're not scared to get a plan B, get a pregnancy test and bring it later today. Just act like you have to use the bathroom. Please, will you do it? Hello. And then he finally responds back, okay. And then November 27th, 2023, she says, I just want to talk. I really don't want to lose you. Can we talk later? Yes or no? Then she says, I don't know what your problem is, but I need you to bring me what I need tonight. It's hard doing all this gym stuff with this baby, and if I don't do them, I'm going to get an F. January 9th, 2024. It says this is the final text exchange between Jarvis and Naziah before she went missing. And then, so Naziah says, don't forget, be there before 3. I will let you know when I'm leaving the school. If you're not there, I will wait. And she says, send okay if you see the message so I can delete your number. And he says, okay. And then we get to the judge. So it says, the article title says, what the judge said while ruling man to stand trial for missing Detroit teen Naziah Harris's murder. Several people failed her. It says, after a 4-day long preliminary hearing, a judge ruled the man accused of unaliving a missing Detroit teen will stand trial. Naziah Harris went missing on January 9th, 2024. Okay. And let me see. I'm going to the part where where the judge says what she says. Okay, it says before the ruling, the judge says she wanted to speak on behalf of Naziah on the community that failed her. The judge said, based on what she heard in the last few days, several people failed her. She began listing family members and school officials accusing them of failing Naziah. I don't know where her mother is, the judge continued. I don't know anything other than she was forced to live in a home where she was not protected or given adequate attention and love. I don't know who her father is. I don't have any mention of him in her life, no presence. All the men who saw Jarvis Butts hanging out and always around these young girls, including Naziah and his 9-year-old daughter, going up to the shop to clean up. The school counselor who never showed up, or the person who was supposed to show up if that counsel was absent after Naziah was on the floor on the day she went missing, saying she needed to speak to someone and speak to the counselor. She pointed out there was no mention of CPS and wondered about their involvement with them. She called Naziah's grandmother's testimony questionable. She understood her grandmother's testimony was used to establish where Naziah lived in her regular routine, and she understood she was not a runaway child. However, the judge found it hard to believe that Butts never went to the home as the grandmother testified. Always sending those girls to the shop raises questions, added the judge, regarding the grandmother's testimony. Butts co-owned an auto shop in Detroit where Naziah was reportedly frequently seen. How were there 2 women in that house who had birthed children themselves who did not notice Naziah was pregnant, and I believe she was, and not having her period anymore, said the judge. She said what stood out the most was that when the grandmother learned at around 6 p.m. on January 9th, 2024, that Naziah did not come home from school, and said she looked around for her and decided to wait until the next morning to call the police, she appeared to not show emotion. I don't know who else failed Naziah, but the community did, said the judge. The judge agreed with prosecutors that a body is not needed to establish first degree premeditated unaliving. It would have been a much shorter exam if her body were found, but this is where we are, said the judge. Let me see here. Miss Cutie Pie, I don't know. I see you said statement, but I don't know what you put before statement. Hey, y'all that are in here. Thank you for hanging in here with me. I appreciate it. Angelique said, baby, Judge Aaliyah went all the way in on everybody. You could tell she was livid and kept her composure. I know she wanted to go off. I'm looking at her body language just in this image. I'm gonna I'm gonna watch it. I want it. Oof, Lord, I'm gonna watch it as well. I didn't watch the judge yet. I was like, let me get through the articles. But I'm gonna watch her as well. But yeah, I get it. This is where I was when people were making excuses for the adults. I'm telling you, it's when I saw this story, I was like, I cannot with these adults. Like I can't. Um, Miss Cutie Pie said, I love the judge's statement. Got you, Miss Cutie Pie. Okay, so then it says, we may never know what happened, but from what I heard today and over the last 4 or 5 days, it appears he intended to perform what he thought was a do-it-yourself termination on Naziah and went south. And instead of seeking medical attention for her, he intentionally unalived her and tried his best to cover it up. And it says, before concluding the hearing, she told Butts to stand up and listen to her as she continued her statement directly towards him. At one point, I thought you were cognitively impaired, she told Butts. And then maybe you had the brain of a 10-year-old, and that's why you were doing such things. But as I heard more and more testimonies, you're just a true definition of a pedophile. I'm saying it incorrect on purpose. At one point, I'm sorry, you ruined Naziah. You played mind games with her. We all heard that, she continued. You controlled her emotionally. She was exposed to so much at such a young age. The text messages between you two were disgusting to hear. Naziah deserves so much more. And while I mentioned that other people have failed her, Jarvis Butts, you are the monster in this whole picture. And it says the murder trial is scheduled to begin January 16th, 2025, which was yesterday for us. I definitely will watch it, Angelique. I'll probably watch it after I get off this live. Okay, and let me see if I have anything else. I'm double checking. So key takeaways. He's now 42. I think when he went in at first, when he was charged, he was 41, but he's now 42. Naziah was 13. He also has an 8-year-old victim, a 4-year-old victim. Um, he has at least 4 offenses from his criminal history. Um, I the aunt and grandmother have some explaining and answering to do, in my opinion. I agree with everything the judge said. And I think that's it for now. The school counselor that didn't show up, I know how these schools set up educators and people that are supposed to be there. I would like to know more about that school and the school counselor that didn't show up, but I would think the priority would go to the little girl that's on the ground that needs assistance versus maybe some scheduled appointments or whatever else there is. But I'll keep up with this, and when I can show footage, I will. Look out for footage. If I do show it, it'll be on trending at some point. I'm simultaneously right now on legal at some point and trending at some point. But talking about it, I'll try to do it from both channels. And hey, y'all. Hey, Nanny of the Maroons, Pat Dyer. Hey, y'all. So that's what I have so far. We'll just, I'll, I can't even say I'll keep y'all updated because as it comes out, I know I'm not the one that's mostly doing it in real time, but I do want to still discuss it and cover it as things come out. So yeah, so thank y'all that stuck with me on this one, and blessings to y'all that I totally get it if this is just too heavy of a topic. I definitely get it. the statistics are going to show that just in this chat, there are victims of something like this. So I definitely understand. So I will see y'all soon. I will try to come back with something lighter to just keep a balance, but I thank you. Jay Jammin, because of the things that have happened on YouTube so much, I'm gonna say no, and it's not because I'm hating on anybody. It's just some crazy stuff that be happening on YouTube. So I will say, y'all just type in your YouTube search bar to find the other content creators that are covering the case that are showing the footage. But it's just been some crazy stuff, and I've kept quiet. And I'm not even saying they're in any sector I'm in, but I've had to learn my lesson the super hard way, apparently. So that's the only reason. But I don't know them, so I'm not hating on nobody at all, I promise. But thank y'all so much. Yes, Angelique, thank you for being here. Thank you again for your super chat as well. And thank you for asking, J Jam, and I appreciate that. All right. I will see y'all soon. Talk to you later.